This is Pastor E with Real Talk with E. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast, Real Talk with E, where we're still unpacking some marital issues and how we should deal with them. Before we get started, let me just go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor, Little Caesars. Little Caesars, home of the hot and ready cheese or pepperoni pizza, delivers pizza right to you. Order on the app and get it delivered right to your door. Don't forget to add crazy bread or Caesar wings to your order and make it a meal with a 2-liter soda. Little Caesars, all made fresh and delivered to your door. Pizza. I think I like the best part about that of just the whole pizza thing. So as you know, we got our usual suspects with us today. We got over here to my left, Johanna Stamps. What's up, Johanna?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing today?
A little goofy.
Yeah, hello, Goofy. Well, all right, well, that makes things even better. We're going to have some more fun today. And over to my right, we got the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Pastor Groovy, Pastor Dennis. What's happening, man? Peace and love. Oh, gosh.
Wow, yeah. We really are goofy.
Oh, man, I think, you know what? I'm glad I didn't eat anything anytime soon. So now we can just go ahead and get started. So, you know, today, you guys, we want to talk about something that we've talked to and talked about it, but I think we've kind of talked around it a little bit and not necessarily always to it. But we think this is something that is probably maybe I'll step out on a limb and say maybe the most critical component to not only a marriage but to any relationship that we have, and that is, you know, about honesty. So today we're calling it "Bring It to Light." And bringing it to light has a lot of different facets to it. But, you know, we want to just kind of jump off with how bringing the various things that are in your relationship, in your marriage, that are maybe considered darkness, right? Could be cheating. It could be literal cheating, like, you know, messing around with somebody. It could be cheating, you know, emotionally on your spouse. It could be just, you know, telling the little white lie that we all love to talk about, even though I think that's kind of racist. Why is the white lie okay, but then the other lie is not okay? Just kidding. I was poking fun, people. You know, I wish we could get a little. I don't have a laughter thing here. I'm just going to clap for myself, dadgummit. So, but we want to talk about bringing it to light. And Johanna, you posed some really interesting thoughts in the paper that you shot to Pastor Dennis and I. Why don't you kind of talk to what is it about bringing it to light? Where did that come from? And just give us some thoughts about it.
Well, what I find a lot with clients especially is that I can have a conversation with somebody week in, week out, and suddenly we can get like 3 months down the road and the real issue comes up. And I think it's because we're in a place of trust, that they or something else has brought it up, something else that we talked about. But once that happens, it's amazing what happens. I mean, especially if there's a faith component to it. Then there's okay, I've taken something from this place where I have kept it pushed down for so long, and now I'm bringing it up, and it's not just them working on it. Suddenly, God can do something with it as well. And so there's something that's really beautiful about it, and also something that can put rocket fuel on if somebody wants to make a huge change in their life. That can put like an incredible amount of rocket fuel behind whatever they're trying to walk through. And it's funny because if you're just kind of like walking kind of a mundane path for a while, and then suddenly the person will come in the next time and you'll say, "Ooh, you look different." Like something physically looks different when those things come up and they're brought to the light.
Awesome. Pastor Groovy, now, you've been one that has, you know, always talked about, do people really want to deal with the darkness? Is the darkness, say, maybe more, you know, fearful than the truth? Dealing with the darkness, right? Dealing with the issue. Is that kind of, I think you put it down here. The pain of exposure is perceived to be greater than the pain of keeping it pushed down. So is that kind of like what Johanna's talking about? I mean, is that in line with bringing it into the light so that it can be addressed, or what are you thinking?
I think, yeah, I don't intend to talk in a circle, although that might be what I do. It's not my intention here. But let me see if I can make this connection and make it make sense. In a marriage, all right, already not making sense. Let me back up. According to some experts that are experts in communication, up to 93% of communication is nonverbal. So words matter, and words happen in marriages, and so words can hurt and all that. We get that. But in a marriage, the nonverbal communication is more important than in most relationships. I mean, if you're having a bad day, if you're in a healthy relationship, you know what the security of a hug can feel like, and just to be able to feel accepted and warmly embraced and loved. You know what positive body language looks like, but you also know what negative body language looks like. And so, I think a lot of men, in particular, because I don't know how women think. And I think a lot of men are afraid to go deeper based on their perception of the outcome based on the body language of their wife.
Oh. Now, I'm gonna push back on that
Push
little bit.
on back.
I'm gonna push back on that. I understand what you're saying, but is that the coward's way out for some to not address the issue just because they're worried about what the pushback is going to be?
Johanna's excited to answer that.
Well, I'm just imagining. So the perceived outcome is, if I bring this up, it's going to be like World War III. And so like just not talking about it at all is going to be easier. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that if I bring this up, the perception is it's not going to be received well.
Okay.
I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the words say.
Yeah.
Hey, can we have a conversation around this? Regardless of what the verbal conversation is, because of the body language, I think that the men often never get to unload what they would unload if they could. And I don't think that it's perceived World War III or anything like that. I think it's subconscious. And to your point, what you wrote and sent us earlier this week, Johanna, about, do we hide in the darkness, or do we operate there through ignorance? Because we've never been shown, we've never seen a model of how not to operate there.
Yeah.
But see, I think that can be twofold, though. I told you, ladies and gentlemen, I told them I was going to be the antagonist today, so I'm going to antagonize this a little bit.
What a change of pace for you.
Shocker! When you're good at something, you just keep doing it. I think, though, that sometimes that it is a fear, meaning men have to learn how to communicate. Grunting is not communication. Is not communication. Communication is also two ways. And that, I had to learn that for myself, right? So I was willing to go into the communication if I could talk, but I wasn't willing to go into the communication, into a situation of communication, I should say, if I had to be the only one. All I could do is sit there and listen, right? I've been in situations in my personal life, years ago, where it was like, well, I just don't want you to say anything. I just want you to listen. Well, that's not fair, because that's not communication. What that is you want to monologue, or you want to just be able to say whatever you want to say, and I'm supposed to eat it up. But I think sometimes men do that very same thing because they don't want to have to do the next thing, which is listen to what is actually being said. Now, notice I didn't say validate anybody's feelings. I didn't say affirm anybody's feelings. I said just listen, because sometimes in the listening, you can quell the negativity that may come from the conversation, because we do something that is very unusual for us, which is to kind of go, okay, yes. So when you said that, did you mean blank? Or when you say that, are you saying blank? So that we can kind of confirm that what is being said to us, we're actually hearing.
But how often do people do that in the moment? Like when you're having a heated conversation, how often do people slow down and actually ask, so this is what I'm hearing. I would just like to confirm. Like, does that happen?
It depends.
Okay.
So if your marriage is maturing,
Yeah.
I would say yes, because you're not now fighting. You're not trying to create supremacy. What you're doing is you're trying to understand where that person that you say you love is coming from.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, when Jill and I get into conversations, if I know this is going to be a long conversation, I say, hold on just a minute. And I go get a pad, a paper, and a pen, and I sit and I write as she talks. It's not to win. It's to then come back around and say, okay, before we kind of go to level 2, I just need to know that I'm understanding where you're coming from, because I'm trying to now appropriate my mind. I mean, my thoughts and my words, so that when I do have the opportunity to speak to it, I can speak to what you said, not to the emotions that are in it, which we don't do. Now, since you said we were talking about the men, I just throwing that out.
All right, so everybody out there knows that Pastor Groovy is going to have a take on this.
That's what I love it.
And Pastor Groovy wants you to know, I want to be all cool about this thing. So let me tell you how the men get into the fields.
Ooh, into the fields. Go, Pastor Groovy, go.
Oh my goodness.
What you're talking about is already a mature relationship. When I'm talking about prevent you from getting there. So, for example, I want to talk to you, honey, about I don't feel like we're on the same page about this. And my wife rolls her eyes. And rolling her eyes is her verbal way of saying, here we go again. I thought we already talked about this. And I don't feel respect when she rolls her eyes. Something as small as that then shuts me down. And I never then want to force, might not be the right word, but I never want to pursue the hard work of getting past that, because the disrespect is painful. And there are going to be other physical symptoms. Maybe it's the you all know what the difference when a man sighs and when a woman sighs, right? When a woman sighs, when your wife sighs, it's what have you done now? But when a man sighs, it's all is right with the world. I have conquered the world.
Just thought I'd throw you out a shout out.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about are the physical cues that most men don't push through because the level of disrespect is too painful to do that.
I'm with you, but this is what I'm driving at. But I think that the reason why they don't is because they don't have an example of what the mature side of it actually can look like. And I think this is just my personal opinion. I'm a man, so I'm not digging at the men. But I am saying that women, I think, have a better way. They're better equipped to kind of communicate their emotions when they feel like they're in an environment that they're actually being listened to, not the uh-huh. And what I'm doing, folks, is that I'm saying while my head, I'm not paying any attention to her. I have a remote in my hand, or I have something else in my hand. I'm doing something else where I am not devoting any attention to her. I don't know that I'm just saying, I don't know that as men, we've seen that modeled for us so that we know what the safe space is. So, if all we do is we go, well, she moaned, she groaned, I throw my hands up, screw it, it's done, then we're going to always be in this space, right? Mm-hmm, sure. So there's never going to be healing. So I'm with you. And what I'm saying is, do we ever how do we give people how do we model the right way, right? So you can kind of go, okay, use me as an example. I was horrible at this in my first marriage. Horrible. Because I was like, oh God, here we go. We're going to talk about it again. And it wasn't her fault. It was me. It had nothing to do with her. It was all me, because I was like, you're catching me at the wrong time. Well, no time was really a good time because I just didn't want to hear it. Right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had some men in my life that showed me this is how you do it. This is why you do it. Right? So then you disarm the other person from going, here we go. He didn't listen. Whereas, think about it. I mean, if you're able to say, hey, I just want to talk about this again. I know we had this conversation before, and I didn't hear you. I didn't pay attention. I apologize. I'm sorry for that. Can we talk about this again? And I want to take notes about what you're saying, so that then, instead of me interrupting you, which I know you don't like, allow me the opportunity to be able to respond back to you when you take a breath, kind of a thing. Now, does that, I'm asking because I don't know all of the statistical stuff, but does that help? And even to your point, Johanna, does that help somebody kind of learn how to communicate, period?
I mean, doing life together, what a beautiful opportunity for us. We never get to see it. It's like you said. Like, how many people are just living their own lives and just feel like this, like you said last week, Dennis, is this as good as it gets? Is there anything more than this?
So to your question earlier about reflective listening or empathic listening, it's just a tool you have in your toolbox. And so for everyone listening to this, I don't know how many millions that'll be, but millions that'll be. I hope you're building a toolbox, and these kinds of conversations are going to. If you don't know how to do reflective listening or empathic listening, I hope that you'll learn and put it in your toolbox. And that's the only thing we can do, and hopefully, God will give us the wisdom when we're coming to a roadblock to dig in our toolbox and find out. Okay, let's try this tool that's. Pastor Eric said would always work without fail.
Wow. I will stand on that ledge, and I would say that 99.9% of the time it will work. I'm not going to tell you over what span of time that it will work, because you didn't get there overnight, so it ain't going to get healed overnight. It's going to take work, and I think that's the problem. You said this last week that kind of it's still been. Would you tell me we need to cogitate on it?
That's right.
Yeah. So that whole roommate, we're married roommates, and it's kind of like, that makes sense, because if you don't want to put the work in, then why'd you get married? Am I muted? Okay. It's all good, because we could probably hear it over here, so you're good. But why did we get married? So if we don't want to put in the work, why do we? So, but how? Let me get back to what we were talking about. How do we bring that stuff into the light, though, Pastor Groovy or Johanna, either one of you? How do we bring these type of things into the light where we can both feel safe to talk about them?
Well, the first is creating that space of safety and learning how to truly listen to each other. I think is step number one in order to get there. If you don't have that, and like Dennis said, like that is, I feel like that's just the foundation. Learning how to truly sit, be quiet, still your own mind, not try to think about, okay, what am I going to say next? Like I have to conjure up these ideas that I'm going to respond with and shut her down or shut him down. That it's first, okay, I'm going to truly listen to you. I want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. I'm going to ask questions to go deeper, because most of the time when you do that, you start to see that there are lots of different facets to what they're saying and where it's coming from. And then you're actually getting to know somebody. You're actually getting to know your partner by asking those questions.
So you're listening more to understand, not to respond.
And listening not just to understand their words, but understand who they are, to be curious about that person.
Like that.
Because if you're curious about that person, then you can get curious about, this is a very novel idea and maybe very naive. But if you could get to the point where you could say, this is interesting. Like, this is coming up. I wonder if God wants to do something with this in my life and in both of our lives right now. Let's see what happens if we bring it up and we poke the bear a little bit. That if you could be like that, if we can be like that in conversations and have that curiosity and have that kind of almost delight about what's God going to do next in our life? Like, things would be very different. But again, that might be incredibly naive.
I don't think it's naive. Pastor Groovy? You're writing, so I know that we got some good stuff coming here.
Well, we got some stuff. We'll see if it's any good or not. So remember, I don't know if it was last week or week before, but we talked about the crazy cycle. And so I don't want to love her because she doesn't deserve it. Well, I'm not going to love him because I shouldn't. I'm not going to respect him because he doesn't deserve it because he's not loving me. So it's just a crazy cycle, right?
Yeah.
And so when you say, why don't we want to do the work? It's at the end of the day, I think because we don't think the other one deserves it.
Ooh.
We don't think they deserve the effort and the work to make it whole, to whatever the accomplish the goal. Now, to your point about the listening to your wife, Eric, I totally agree. I'm more anal about it in that I have to have the conversation with her up front. Is this something you want me to try to help you solve or fix? Because if it is, then I go get notes. Or do you just want me to listen and be engaged?
That's good.
And then I don't take notes. I just give kind of state of the moment kind of responses. State of the moment kind of responses. And,
Sure.
But sometimes, very rarely though, does she say, I want you to help fix it. Most of the time it's just to be engaged in the listening process.
That's good because we haven't talked about that. Johanna, your species. Your species.
My species. The listening. Being listened to.
Yeah, so I mean,
My species.
I couldn't help it.
I thought you were talking about the weird look on my face. I'm like, do I look like a koala or something?
No.
Put those glasses back on. Let's ask.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. But seriously, I mean, are there different types of listening that need to go on? And what I mean by that is whether it's between a husband and a wife, a man and a woman. I mean, how do we learn to bring this up, right? So if we're going to bring it to the light, do we need to be able to tell your spouse, like if you're a woman, do you need to be able to say, listen, I'm just venting. I don't want you to help me solve anything. I just want you to listen to me. And is that appropriate? I mean,
I think that it runs the fine line of what you were talking about earlier. Are you just sitting there with your remote control and then just kind of like zoning out while actually being in the same room? Or is it kind of tracking with the person emotionally, but not actually having to give all of your insights along the way?
Okay. That's good. Because I think sometimes that's missed in the premarital, maybe even conversation when we start doing premarital conversations. Do we ever really encourage or equip the man to understand that it is okay to listen without solving? Did we ever encourage and equip the woman, though, also that a man wants to be listened to just as much as you want to be listened to?
And I think that's really important. And because that's kind of the question that's running around in my head is if we're constantly asking for somebody to just be there and not to fix, which is like such an incredible quality in your species.
I love it. I was wondering if it's coming back around.
There it is. It's come back around. Like if we're not actually asking our husband to come and help us along the way, then is that demasculate? Is that why am I not able? Yeah. Or is it like cutting them off in a place, or is it not? Are you not able to join each other on that journey because you're not giving each other the opportunity to bring your own skills?
Interesting. Groovy.
You need a gavel or something.
I like it when you bring stuff up, and I can always tell by the look on his face, like it's like he's like warring between two opinions. Should I tell him the truth? Like, or should I be profound? Which one should I give him?
Always be profound.
There's a great lesson that we can learn, and I have to learn it over and over. Is that the propensity to tell one "I told you so" does not always equal the outcome you hope for.
I don't know when it would benefit you to say that.
Well, in my mind, it benefits me lots of times, but it just never seems to play out that way. That says a lot about my mind, doesn't it? Go ahead. Let me have it. Blast me.
Nope. Love you.
There's a guy that you probably neither one of you will know, but he died a long time ago. He was a sales trainer, and he then grew to be a motivational speaker. His name was Zig Ziglar, and he was just an amazing guy. I loved him. I loved to listen to him talk and teach. And he said the number one reason for divorce is false advertising. That what we promise in courtship, we don't deliver in marriage. You probably have some chapters in that book, Johanna. So, if you think about that, that probably is so true for 90% of most of the challenges that married folks find themselves in, right? We haven't delivered in marriage what we promised in courtship.
So what did we promise in courtship?
We promised that the other person is the most important person in our life, and that we promised that in courtship that whatever your needs are, we want to meet them. Right? But then in marriage, slowly, most of the time, that crazy cycle begins to happen, and then we're the most important person, not them.
Oh.
You know, I like that. I'm gonna jump on that a little bit, because when I do counseling with marital couples, this is after they've been married, they got a kid or two, all of a sudden come in, and I will ask the question. Inevitably, I'll say, "Hey, so who's the most important person in your life?" And I always get this pause moment. I think it's hilarious, because I think they think it's like a setup, like it's a trick question. And I go, "No, who is the most important person?" And inevitably, they'll both say, "Well, she is," or "he is," and I'll say, "Okay, so who's number one? Who takes up the most time and attention in your life?" And they'll say their kid. And I'll go, "Okay, so then you're wrong on both fronts." And they get really, really ticked off with me. And I go, "Why are you mad? I didn't come to you, you came to me. So why are you angry?" And they said, "Well, how could you say that?" I said, "Because who should be number one in your life is the Lord. If you're a Christian couple, right? If you're not, then I don't know what to tell you. But it should be the Lord should be number one in your life. Because if the Lord is number one in your life, then you're going to always have enough love, respect, attention, energy for everyone else, even when you're tired. Number two, if the child is the most important part of your life, you're wrong. Because the child wasn't there when you got married. The child is a byproduct of your marriage. So if number one, and I had somebody tell me, "Well, God is number one, my wife is 1A." I said, "Wrong. The Bible tells us that he's a jealous God. So why would you put your wife or your husband in that position to actually now you put them in opposition to God, whether you wanted to or not, because of the way you're treating that. If your kid is the most important thing that's going on in your life, then that means you are withholding something from your spouse that you should never withhold from them. Now, I'm not saying that the child or the children are not important. They are very much important. God blessed you with them. You have to take care of them. And there's a lot that goes on. But when you false advertise and you say you're the number one person in my life, and then you get married or you have kids, or even if, let's say it's not even kids, it's your family. It's your big external family. All of a sudden, you spend more time talking to them than you do to this person, or you confide certain things in your family than what you do your spouse. That is a problem, and that's foundationally, to your point, false advertisement.
I know we got to wrap this up. Johanna's got to go, but I gotta poo-poo on this one thing you said. I know you didn't. You said it meaning it, but you didn't really mean it literally.
Okay.
You said that when Jesus is number one, then you have time to make all that stuff work. That you have the time and the energy and
he
the focus
he will give you the time and energy to make it work.
I'm going to push back and say, when you have him number one, when you don't do that well, he gives you the grace to accept the humility from your partner that says, "I messed that up."
Got you.
When he's number one, then you have the grace with each other. You have the humility to go and say, "I didn't do that well."
Sure.
But you don't ever always get it right. But having him number one gives you more tools,
Got you.
more freedom to mess up and then go say, I didn't I didn't do that well.
Thank you for
Yeah.
correcting me. That deserves a hand clap of praise.
That always makes me poop my pants when you do that.
We're
Now
gonna
I
have
gotta-
to have some bloopers.
Yeah. Either that or I'm going to have to get my seats covered over here. Come on, Johanna. I know you're not going to let me say that without there being some response back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's what does the other side look like?
Ooh.
Like, what does it look like when that doesn't happen? What does it look like when it does happen? Because let's see, I'm just like kind of going through the Rolodex of like all of the relationships that I am like privy to right now that are struggling. And I'm like looking at them right now. I'm looking at them if they were to walk a path with somebody and see what day in and day out looks like. What does it look like when you actually truly surrender your life and your marriage over to Jesus?
Wow. Yeah.
Like, what does it truly look like? Because, I mean, there can be a lot of lip service in that, too. You can say, I had my prayer time. I had my devotions this morning, and I started my day with Jesus. But it could be that as soon as that book closes, that everything goes back on your shoulders. You didn't leave it where it was supposed to. You didn't put it on the cross. And so and there's just a lot of nuances to this. And I think it's, as a listener, I would assume that it would be difficult to actually, like you said earlier, understand what the model looks like.
See, that's why I think that as we do this is just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
As we do this, we have to shape what the biblical model of that marriage should look like.
Yeah.
To your point, in all of its imperfections and all of its struggles, because I can tell y'all right now, just for me, my first marriage, I was looking for what the model should look like. And then when I didn't see it, I kept coming back to what I felt like was best for me. So the advertisement was false because I wasn't, I was in love and I loved her and the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, when things got hairy and we were both kind of doing this number right here, we're always butting heads like rams. At some point in time, you are going to go to the mode of self-preservation. So, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to sell you, or no, I'm going to show you that it was false advertisement from the very beginning. But I don't think that the love is false, though. Not always. I think sometimes it is. Absolutely. I think people genuinely love that person, right? And that person genuinely loves you. But when there is no model for you to follow, or there's nothing for you to kind of latch on to say, okay, when I'm in the midst of the controversy with my spouse, I need to be quiet and I need to be an active listener. And if that means I got to run to my briefcase or book, whatever, and pick up a piece of paper and pen and write it down and explain why I'm doing it, why am I writing it down? It's because I want to be able to really listen to you and not listen so I can and formulate my own opinions, because that's kind of what ends up happening. People listen to respond and not listen to go deep, to really take the journey with the person and understand them.
Yeah.
So Johanna's the trained clinician. Whose wife needs more prayer? Mine or Eric's?
Mine. I don't need Johanna to make a diagnosis on that. Mine.
No, we'll argue about that.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, that's another thing that I think we got to unpack in this. We got to be able to unpack men. Who are you? Women. Who are you? Let's get away from the smoke and mirrors, the mask, the crap that we like to talk about. That's so surface. Like really, who are you? If somebody were to look at if somebody could download the incognito part of your brain, who are they really going to see? See, my mother says this all the time. I can't stand it when you say you don't care. And I keep telling her, Mom, it's not that I don't care about people. I just don't care enough to allow it to infect. That's the word I'm going to use. Infect the way I think and the way I see things. Is it wrong? Probably sometimes, yes. Does it help me to stay consistent with who I want to be, who I'm really walking after the Lord in being? Yes, it does. Because I think we bring certain things in our life, including our marriages, that aren't supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
We bring other people's problems into our marriages. We bring our family's issues into our marriage. We bring a lot of crap into our marriage that should not be there. Last time I checked, the Bible said that the two shall become one, not the family, not everybody else, but the two.
Troublemaker.
Yeah, it's all right with me. I don't.
Yeah.
I sleep well. What else? Y'all. What is wrong with y'all? Y'all all of a sudden all super quiet. And Johanna's staring at me like she wants to fight her brother in the parking lot. I mean,
I'll watch. I'll buy a ticket.
Honestly, I think last week, I don't remember what you said, Eric.
I ticked you off, huh?
Ooh, no. It was something that kind of struck home about, is it you or is it the other person? Are you trying to change the other person? It was something that like kind of I have noticed in like lots of areas of my life, like where my brain goes to sorry, I keep doing a lot of hand gestures. Mm. It's how often I'm going to, okay, in a very subtle way, I need to fix the other person. And what I'm seeing happening, like just as days go on, that God will bring something up and suddenly it's like a dose of humility, and then it's like, whoa, there's something that I need to fix in myself too. And so there's something, and I'm hoping same for the listeners as well, that as you start hearing these things, that it brings up in the light things that also we can walk it out and be able to in community, whether in person or, through the mission of this podcast, that we actually get to do that changing along the way.
I hope so, because think of it like this. Women love and want intimacy. Men love and want sex. I'm not going to say it's 100% that way on both sides. I don't know that. So you can't really say that. But at the end of the day, when you really, what you really want is you want somebody to see you.
Yeah.
All of you. The good, the bad, the ugly, all that other stuff. And I wonder sometimes, do we kind of help people realize how to see their spouse or their significant other? Do we really help them understand how to see it? Because think about it, Dennis, we talk about this all the time in sermons and stuff. We talk about how the Lord sees us, mm-hmm. but I don't know that we ever trickle it down to, well, how do you see other people and how are other people seeing you? Kind of thing. And I know we got to go, and because I know it's we got to be done by 6:00. But any parting shots? Any last thoughts, Pastor Groovy?
I'm going to take away from our time today that I'm going to self-examine my propensity to false advertise, and I'm also going to think about the crazy cycle, and I'm going to talk with my wife about that. And see if we have been on or are on any of that kind of crazy cycle, and if I need to do something differently in the deliverance of what her expectations are, or am I still false advertising in some way? So if anybody's finding value in that, that's what I'm going to do this week.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And you had that great tool last week about being able to look at do the perception of how things are. I thought that was brilliant
mm-hmm.
last week. And I love that the toolbox is growing,
mm-hmm.
Just the opportunity to go back, listen, and make sure that we're capturing all of those just skills. I mean, these are skills,
mm-hmm.
It's kind of, I spend so much time in the grief world where, in the grief coaching world, where if you actually equip somebody with tools, their life of walking through loss is going to be dramatically different. And the same is really true in marriage. All these things, we think we're just supposed to know it all because people have been doing it since the beginning of time. But nope.
I'm with you. I'm telling you, for those of you who are listening to us or will be listening to us, let me end this with this piece. Please stop thinking that your marriage is going to be perfect in somebody else's eyes.
Ooh.
Perfection only resides in the eyes of the Lord because he's the only one that's perfect. So he's the only one that can set the standard. For all the rest for the rest of us, slubs, if you will, we're going to be imperfect, which means we're going to make mistakes, which means we're going to say things wrong, going to do things wrong. The key is whether you continue to repeat it. I used to say to my daughter, you can always, I want you to always tell me the truth. So if you did something, do not lie to me. Now, you will never get in trouble as long as you tell me the truth, unless you are the habitual offender. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and thinking, well, Daddy, I told you the truth. I said I was sorry, so that should cover it. The answer is no, because just like with the Lord doesn't allow us to do the same thing over and over again and just cover us. He says, no, there are consequences you're going to have to deal with. So please, 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 whatever you do, as you listen to this, we're giving you exactly what we think and what we know based upon some good experiences and some bad experiences.
And some facts.
And please do us a favor. If you need to reach out to us and let us know. You can call us right here at the church at 804-744-2044. And if you need to reach either Pastor Dennis, myself, or Johanna, you can get to us by that telephone number, because we would love to hear what you have to say and help you walk through this maze and this, it's a journey called marriage. And don't give up so fast. Think about what you can do, and then let's talk and see if there are other things that we can help you with. God bless you. We love you guys, and we are out.